man these tuggers are hard-working, dedicated seamen who usually go unnoticed, at least until now. Al Plant, the author of a new publication called The Tugboat Book, has joined us in the studio to shed a little more light on and focus in over and on the tugboats to which we are referring. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How many tugboats work the Great Lakes at any given time? Do you know?
That's a question I really can't answer because they move around from place to place. Some of the Hannah boats, you see them occasionally up here, but most of the time they're down in the Mississippi and down in the Gulf working the oil rigs.
I guess I never think about them traveling that far. I only think of them like they were docked down at the Detroit River and they're waiting for a major boat to come in, a ship to come in, that is, and they need to be pushed or pulled one way or the other because of waters being
They go a long
shallow.
distance, tugboats. One of them, the Darrell C. Hannah, considering today happens to be the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, it was one of the ships that took part in the Normandy invasion. It actually towed barges of munitions and paraphernalia across the Atlantic Ocean to the beach invasion of Normandy.
So some of them are old, some of them have seen wartime action.
Some of them are very old. Some of the ones that take part in the races are built in the late 1800s.
Really?
Still going strong.
I never think of them as being
That beautiful workmanship.
Oh, yeah. The wood and all that goes into it.
Some of them were steel back then as well. It's quite amazing to delve into the history of the tugboats and see what they were constructed of. And back further than that, the horsepower that they had was tremendous. They used to take, for example, the tug called Champion. It was a tug that ran out of Detroit and out of Amherstburg on the Canadian side. And it used to go down to Long Point and to Cleveland and pick up as many as 8 full-rig sailing ships at one time and pull them all in tandem right up to the headwaters of Lake Huron.
That must have been quite a sight, Al.
The record, to my knowledge, has never been broken.
That's an incredible number of ships to be pulling and shoving around. I happen to think, when I think of tugboats, I think of a boat that's very powerful to churn its way through the waters, but not fast.
Yeah, you're quite correct. The speed comes only with tugs that go out into the ocean, and some of them are used in rescue work, and some of them are also used in salvage and going to places where there might be an oil spill. Some of these super tankers. Ever since the Torrey Canyon disaster, the world has been kept in a little better stead by an outfit called Smith Lloyd out of the Netherlands. They base tugboats all around the world, places like Fort Pierce in Florida, that area. And any place where there might be tankers go aground or on the shipping lane areas. And then they have special pumps and special crews that they fly from Holland to these areas to use those tugs. Obviously, they can't take the tug in. It would take too long to go from one place to another. But the speed of those tugs is amazing, and the horsepower is tremendous. They don't even look like the tugs we have around here. They look more like the tug, the Bristol Bay, or one of the big Coast Guard cutters. They're quite large, quite a high bow for hitting through those large waves on the ocean.
That's interesting. Yeah, ours look like tugboats.
Yeah, good and flat.
A lot of classic lines around here.
Powerful little tug.
We have a fellow who's in business, Gaelic tugboat lines, Bill Hoy, that's down at the Rouge River there. And I think he's a collector in a way because he goes and salvages boats that were stuck in the mud and all over the place and puts them back in and paints them green and white with an orange shamrock on it because he shows no partiality whatsoever.
That's wonderful. They truly are, Al Plant, unheralded boats on the Great Lakes. So a lot of attention goes to the freighters, not only the ones who have gone down with heroic sailors, but the ones who are constantly plowing back and forth on the Great Lakes. But I, frankly, had never thought a whole lot about the tugboats, and I watch boats on the Great Lakes a fair amount.
Yeah, the tugboats are sort of the, like you say, the unsung heroes because they're always around. They're especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
If they have to move some oil, you can appreciate the fact that a tug and a barge can get through the ice where an oil tanker can't. What they do is they are usually pushing the barge locked into a notch or a V at the stern of the oil barge, and once they get into that mode and get stuck in the ice, all they do is unhook, back out of it, go ahead of the barge, crash through the ice that's blocking them, and then come back and pull their tow, and away they go.
Mighty Mouse.
The mail must go through. Absolutely. Once in a while, they do have an embarrassing situation or two, like happened to the Hannah Boat Company a couple of years ago, and they got stuck in the ice in the St. Clair River and had to get extricated. That's probably the most embarrassing moments for a tugboat in this particular area.
I guess you don't call the Marines at that point, you call the Coast Guard.
You call the Coast Guard, and they come and bail you out.
Well, I just made a comment about the mail must go through. Do we still have a mail boat, or has that been put to rest?
J.W. Westcott's been around here since the 1800s. I think it's still going to be going.
Yeah,
Who does
that
it
was a
deliver
question. Yeah, to whom do they deliver?
All the freighters that come by the Great Lakes. They've expanded their services. I was talking to Paul Jaganaw a few weeks ago. He's one of the dispatchers down there. And he says that they've gone into a lot of things, like, in fact, they sell my books in that depot there, and if the fellows want to order it from their book list that's available, all they do is radio to the Westcott, and the Westcott can bring it out, and up they go. The system of getting the mail up is still the bucket and the rope, but the way they are notified is no longer by visual contact, it's by radio phone.
I'll be down.
Are they still making tugboats today? Somebody's still building them?
That's a good question,
yes,
and
yes.
the state of Michigan was terribly involved in...
Yeah, they're building tugboats, and they're restoring other ones for various purposes. Some tugs are built for research vessels, pilot vessels that takes crews out to oil rigs and things like that. So there are all kinds of them being built.
What does it cost to build a tugboat?
Lots of money.
They're terribly, terribly expensive, John.
Lots of money. It could run up into the millions, depending on how much.
And the Love Boat thought they had some.
Well, I'm wondering, okay, as far as that is concerned then, your two books, there's actually two I have in my hand. I just called the Tugboat Book. That is one with a lot of nice pictures in it, give you a pretty good idea of the different kinds of tugboats that tour the Great Lakes, as well as a lot of good solid information regarding the history of the tugboat and where it came from. Then the Story of Great Lakes, prehistoric and historic sites and their people, by Al Plant is another one.
Ask Al back, and we'll talk about that.
And we should do just that, have you back to talk a little bit about that, because I know that we are surrounded by this water and probably know very little about it. And people like yourself, we appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it.
How about
Love to
after
be
the
here.
holidays?
That sounds good to me. Al,
Love
will
to.
make yourself available.
I'll
We'll
be
talk
back.
to you then.
Sure.
Al Plant, the author of the Tugboat Book.
Perhaps you've been